All right, good evening. Thank you for joining us for the Southern Provinces Meet the Candidates session. We thank everyone for their participation, and also we thank our candidates, especially, for volunteering, stepping up to run for these offices. Uh, you know, uh, we're here today to give the opportunity for the candidates to answer a few questions about their candidacy, share their background, and then this session is being recorded so that we can share this with the delegates after the event as part of an opportunity to continue to educate our delegates before we head to Grand Chapter Congress in 20 days. So, the way we're going to do this tonight is we have a set of questions that were sent to our different candidates so that they could prepare and share that with the audience. And then we'll kick it off with each candidate giving a brief 1-minute introduction of themselves. Include your personal, professional, fraternal items as you desire. And like Corey did the other day, I'm going to use the randomizer as well. So I'm going to hit the button a few times. And if I forgot to mention it in the beginning in the recording, my name is Jen Huynh Dotto. I am one of the nominations committee members from the Northeastern Province, and I'm excited to be moderating for you all in the Southern Province today. All right, so the randomizer picked Wesley to go first. So Wesley, feel free to give your 1-minute introduction.
Hi, I'm Wesley Higdon. I'm running for the Southeastern Regional Vice President. I initiated at the Capitol chapter at Clemson University in the spring of 2009. I graduated from Clemson with a degree in business management. Then I went to the University of Georgia and got a master's in public administration. I currently work for the South Carolina School for the Deaf and Blind Foundation I'm their director of development, so I do fundraising for them. I've served as a district director both for the University of Georgia and then currently for Clemson, where I've served as Clemson's district director since 2016 when I moved back to South Carolina. And I'm just excited to bring the RVP role back to South Carolina, and also just, further my uh, volunteer journey with Delta Sig.
Awesome. Thanks, Wesley. And the randomizer picks Sarah King next.
Hi. Sorry that the cats are excited that I'm on Zoom right now. I'm Sarah King, and I'm running to serve as the Mid-Atlantic RVP. I started my Delta Sig journey in Georgia. That's where I was born and raised. I was initiated at Mercer University, and then I spent 5 years active with the Atlanta Alumni Chapter while I was in grad school at Georgia State. While in Georgia, I served as a district director for a chapter down there, and I was the vice president of collegiate relations for Atlanta. Then I moved to Virginia about 2 years ago. Absolutely love it here. I'm in Norfolk with my husband and 2 cats. And I've been a district director for a chapter here as well. And I'm president of the Hampton Roads Alumni Chapter. Professionally, and what brought me to Virginia is I'm a professor. I teach economics at Christopher Newport University. So I'm really excited to bring the higher ed perspective to the Southern team and excited to take the next step in my Delta Sig journey.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. And Sean, you're last.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean Widener from Jacksonville, Florida, here for the Atlantic Coast region. I grew up as a military brat, so I've lived all up and down the East Coast, Midwest, Texas, because Texas is definitely its own thing. But I've lived everywhere and connect really well with everybody. Stumbling. My education was specifically in business administration with a focus on HR, and because there was no real HR major at UNF, and somehow I fell into the rabbit hole of supply chain and logistics. So I've been working my entire career there. Right now, I'm primarily focusing on project management. So I'm, working through all the fun certifications that you can do. Definitely trying to take advantage of the educational programs my company offers and having them pay for all of it. I have been a member since 2016, and I've held several roles for the leadership team here in the Atlantic Coast region. kind of backwards. I started as a receiver and then became a district director and then an assistant district director to multiple chapters to help train new rising district directors. So I'm really excited to continue on and be engaged with our region.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean. For overall awareness, for those who are listening to the recording later on, we do have 3 additional RVP candidates that are published as of July 1st for the Southern Province. So I just wanted to make folks aware if they join us later in the call, we'll have them hop right in. But just for the Central Gulf region, we do have Dominic Rand, Mid-South, Emma Reynolds, and South Atlantic, Sarah Lowe. So if they hop on, we'll have them hop right in. But for candidates reference, for the delegates reference, they may reach out to those candidates with any questions or meet them at Grand Chapter Congress in a few weeks. All right, so to move on through, we have a few questions that we'll ask our candidates to provide more background about their campaign. So first off, our question will be, what is your why for wanting to become a Grand Officer? So randomizer once again puts Sean first.
Okay, so why I want to be Grand Officer or RVP? Simply because I am a big advocate for mentoring. I think it's one of the best things that any organization can do. And with my experience with these various roles, I want to help all of our chapters and more importantly, all of our members. Rise right up. Whether that's helping them on the side with interview prep or helping everybody get connected and doing small regional conferences or taking the time to actually connect with one another, because waiting for a lead event, waiting for a GCC to connect with our other chapters is putting us all behind, and we need to be connected even more.
I'm on mute. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Next up, Wesley, same question.
So I'm a big advocate of officers being present and like their chapters knowing who they are. My RVP when I joined was Derek Williams, and he came to our pledge retreat. And that made a really big impression on me as a pledge and then later as a brother. And then having other RVPs who maybe weren't as present as Derek had been. And then the last few years we've had very present RVPs in the southeastern region, and I want to be able to continue that because I think that's very important so that they can first know who you are. You're not just a name that they learn as part of their pledging process, but as Sean was talking about, being able to offer chapter support both in Delta Sig and outside of that, and connect and help them see that it's not just the 4 years. Like there are ways to connect through your whole life, not just serving in a district director or RVP role, but there are numerous ways to stay connected, because Delta Sig has continued to give back to me over the years, and I just feel like that's important as an RVP role to like help them continue to see how it's a lifelong journey. It's not just those 4 years you're in college. And then also I'm just really excited to bring the RVP role back into South Carolina. The Southeastern region spans South Carolina and a lot of Georgia. But being in South Carolina, I'm actually more centralized to all of the chapters. So I'm really excited for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Wesley. So Sarah, you're up.
Yeah, I love DSP. I think we all do. And I've always believed that I want to be able to serve and support our brotherhood in the best way I can at that time. That hasn't always looked like what I wanted it to look like. I graduated and thought I want to go be a DD, and that it wasn't the right timing. But I had great opportunities to serve in other capacities through the alumni chapter. And I've seen that throughout my time in DSP. So when I was asked about the RVP role, I didn't have to think a whole lot to realize that I think that this would be a good fit for my skill set now and would be a great way for me to support the fraternity at this time, given that the leadership pipeline is a little bit different in Mid-Atlantic than it was in Southeast. So I hadn't really thought about it when I was living in Georgia in the same way. But I love working with students. I mean, I wouldn't be a professor if I didn't love working with students. That's what I'm passionate about. So I love that I get to do that through DSP. And I think that being RVP is going to be a great opportunity to support even more students and help all of our students to hopefully get the most out of their college experience. They're getting a lot through the classroom, which is what my day job has me doing, but then to be able to help on the other side and help with that post-graduation point, which is really important. Like Leslie said, it's not 4 years, it's for life, and helping them to make that transition into that time and make the most of the 4 years and beyond.
All great wise, and having been an RVP before, like it's a lot of fun. So can't wait to see what happens there. All right, so let's head on to our next question. Since submitting your nomination, what efforts have you put in to be prepared for your role in day one? So randomizer calls Sarah first this time.
Yeah, a big part of the position is just having DDs that can help on the ground when we're not able to and help support the chapters. So I've been trying to do as much as I can to get that team solidified. So I've contacted the existing DD team and I'm starting to set up meetings with them. I have my successor for the chapter that I've been a DD for. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. So I'm really close to having that solidified. We need to get her CDL done, but trying to get our team set up so that we're ready to go. And outside of the official roles, the duties of the role, my busy time of the semester is going to be right when we get back from GCC starting off. So I'm trying to do as much as I can too to make sure that I'm ready to go in my job. I'm ready to go with the semester so that I can handle some RVP type things as soon as we get back from GCC, solidifying the team, while also making sure that my actual students are also taken care of and that I'm ready to go at the start of the semester.
Excellent. All right, next up, Sean.
Okay, so I'm lucky enough that I'm also in Jacksonville with the current RVP, Trina Kirk, and we have a really good relationship. I've been working alongside her the entire time she has been RVP under the various roles I've had, and I've also been helping train some of the district directors in our region. So I'm very excited, and so my focus has been more so communicating with the district directors and getting the actual, hey, what is the big challenge for this chapter? So, for example, my home chapter, their biggest problem is recruitment. Myself and the current district director, we had a very open conversation. We're both like, we are not the recruiting kind of people. So I've been talking with the current DD and saying, hey, we have these brothers who are very charismatic, very open, the kind of people you want at a party. Let's bring them out and let's see what brainstorming activities they can have that can help support the chapter. And with one of our other chapters, they are going to be put on guidance. Trina very much told me, keeping me aware of that. And I asked, hey, what are they being put on guidance for? What specifically? And it was finance. And usually guidance letters are very much like a slap on the wrist, it's a warning, not any real concrete steps. So I've been talking with Trina and saying, okay, well, assuming I get this role, could we put some language in there where I will meet with their VPF once every other month to go over their finances? That way it's more of a development plan than a you need to fix it. Because as we all know, VPF is a year-long position. The person in it just inherited the mess. So I wanted to come up with a good plan to help teach and reinforce positive behaviors.
Right, excellent. And then Wesley.
I've been talking with the current RVP, CJ, a lot about the current makeup of our DD team, and we have 2 alumni chapters too, and just working with him on which DDs are planning to stay and which we know are not, and then starting to shuffle some people around just because, sometimes you get stuck with a chapter just because that's where the greatest need is, but that's maybe not where their talents are best used. And so a new year is a great time to start. I called it playing chess. We just started like moving people around. So that we could have the strongest the strongest region that we can with our DD team, and then just talking through with him the problems that he can see arising that I'm gonna kind of be inheriting from chapters so that I'm ready to address those. And then like Sarah, I work for a school, even though I don't work for higher ed, I work for a K-12 school, but August is a very busy time for me. So just like Sarah, I'm doing as much as I can now in July so that when I come back from GCC and work is a lot and the RVP role is a lot, just making sure that I'm able to balance that.
Great. I mean, preparedness is half the battle. So these are all really great ways that we're hearing all three of you are prepared. So for our next question, how would you plan to set expectations, provide resources, and hold your team accountable? So we're going to have Sean go first.
So like I said, it's, being very clear on the expectations with the chapters. As a district director, you know, one of our responsibilities is to make sure ritual is performed correctly, which is not always easy, even with some of the changes that have happened over the last couple of years. But it's still always one of the hot button issues of ritual being done wrong. And, my approach for the chapters I was district director for was always going and talking to them and saying, hey, don't make it bigger than what it is. We're putting on a show. It's you only have to convince all the people who are joining our organization that you know what's going on. They're so nervous they're not going to remember anything later. So trying to reassure them, the sky isn't going to fall if things go wrong. But then also like the development plans for chapters that in need of recruiting help or financial help. It's all about just working with them, helping provide those resources, but kind of guiding them along the way, not doing the work for them, but also showing them what the other side looks like.
Fantastic. Next up, Wesley.
I think for chapters to be successful, they have to have good support that comes from both DDs and the RVP, but for the DDs to have what they need, like they have to be supported too, and that doesn't come just from me, that comes from the other DDs because I mean, I've been a volunteer leader. I started being a DD in 2013. So I've been doing this for 12 years and I still don't have all the answers. But when you put all of the DDs together, the hive mind can usually come up with an answer to the question or the problem that's being presented. And if they can't, I mean, that's what the other RVPs are for, right? And then our PVP and that their team. Like it's not just about me, it's just about making sure that there are open lines of communication both between the DDs and the DDs and myself, and then me and the other RVPs, so that everybody feels like we can get an answer quickly and that it's the answer that they need and it's a correct answer for them to act on.
Excellent work. And then finally, Sarah.
Yeah, like everyone has said, communication really is key. Variety of RVP. So I've seen lots of things that have worked well and haven't worked well, but something I do plan on bringing from my time in the Southeast region is actually having a platform for that communication. So like Slack, Discord, something like that. We had used that when I was in Southeast, and it was really helpful to have the hive mind that Wesley's talking about, where all the DDs can share answers. We're going to have some really awesome experienced CDs on the team. We're also going to have some new DDs on the team. And with us all managing, new CMP, the new hub, I think having that central place that we can all go to and ask questions, share information is going to be really helpful. So keeping those open lines of communication, ensuring everyone knows that they can trust me, they can reach out to me if they need anything, but also having an easy way that everyone can connect with the other DDs, I think is going to be really great for the team. So I'm excited to try to implement that this year.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I always tell people about RVP is that if you've never been a people manager, then this is like great people manager experience. Like it's really good practice. So, setting all these things that you shared are going to be great to get started. All right, that ends our prepared questions that we gave to the candidates. So I am getting live from the nominations committee. The board questions were sent to you guys as options. Would you guys be interested in answering those? Since we have time?
Sure.
All right, sounds good. So we'll move on so for context for our audience, for our Meet the Candidates sessions, all candidates were sent questions to prepare. Board candidates were also given a set of questions that the provincial RVP candidates were provided. So we'll move into those. So the first question in that set is, where do you see the biggest opportunity for impact in our organization over the next 3 to 5 years? So we'll have Sarah go first.
So I'm going to give my very higher ed focused answer, but we are seeing a lot of changes in the greater higher ed landscape. And I'm really excited to see how we're able to incorporate those into our organization. I think that with higher ed changing, our fraternity, which the majority of our chapters are collegiate chapters, is also going to have to face changes. I'm very hopeful that there are efforts to bring in the higher ed perspective a lot more through the potential advisory panels. So I think that that is where our biggest opportunities is in listening to the higher ed professionals that we have and using the perspectives from higher ed to be able to bring us into this era of higher ed. We are post-COVID, facing the demographic cliff. And I think that's really where our opportunities are going to be, is engaging with higher ed and looking at those trends and being ready to face those rather than being reactive in a couple of years.
All right. Thanks, Sarah. Wesley, your turn.
I guess kind of along Sarah's lines, I'll take from kind of my professional life. So as I said earlier, I'm a fundraiser by trade, and I think that there's some good opportunities over the next few years for the foundation and the fraternity to start working more collaboratively together so that we can better, as Sarah said, like it's a changing landscape. And if we want to make sure we meet that, then we need to be working in tandem. So I think that there's some unique opportunities for us to build that relationship out.
Great idea. Sean?
With us changing our whole hub and our whole measurement system of the chapters, we're going to see a lot of changes. And I'm sure they're going to be very rapid over at least the next year. But one of the things that I think is going to be the most impactful is reminding everybody and constantly reinforcing the same thing we tell our collegiate chapters. We cannot hold pledges to a standard that the chapter can't maintain themselves. And I think that the same thing holds true for RVPs, PVPs, the central office as well. Professional standards, we all make mistakes all the time. Sometimes things are late. But going in there and kind of advocating for, even if you miss a deadline, you got to still get it done. We still have to meet our minimum requirements, and taking advantage of this time of rapid change in our program to see what we can do to continue to push that. Because, I think we all remember a couple of years ago where we got the 12 emails in 1 hour from the central office, where it was the same email with just spelling corrections, this, that, and the other. I think those should be highlighted, not as a negative thing, but to the chapter and say, hey, even as a professional organization, we're still going to stumble a little bit. And, maybe working with our program to allow a little bit more stumbling, because life happens. Unfortunately, one of my first semesters as a district director, their VP of community service lost one of their parents. And so they were having to constantly travel internationally to deal with estate issues. And, the chapter got unfortunately dinged for that. where a lot of it had to fall onto one officer, the VPCO, who unfortunately wasn't able to get it all done. And it ended up penalizing the whole chapter. Kind of sucked, but you know what? When it came to it, I told them, hey, max out everything else. You never know. Maybe we can squeeze in one more event to get us to that standard. We don't necessarily need to have that late form on there if we have a remedial event. But just kind of continuing to push that professional standards, we can get there.
Oh, you have a supplemental question in the chat if you want to answer that.
A question, because I mean, I know you say that we're going to stumble, but we are a professional organization. So I don't know what those 12 emails were back in the day. I probably would have been really ticked off if central office sent that to me, because you should have things proofed and everything else. And I just ran into this with Georgia Tech this year. They had somebody that wasn't doing what they needed to do. And I was like, all right, I'm going to let you, my coaching to you as a DD is talk to them, say, can we either, we maybe someone else fill your role? Is there something else? Or can you step down and we can appoint someone? And that's sort of the role of the president to make sure that things are effective. So saying that business must go on. I mean, I hate to say it, everybody is replaceable. So anybody that thinks that they're not, even in their career, you are. So somebody's got to figure that out. So I hold Delta Sig to a higher standard because we are a professional business fraternity. So where we keep saying that, oh, we can let it slide, I'm having problems with that. And I know I've been a member for a long time, but that's something that I think that we need to continue to strive for. I will say strive for excellence versus strive for. I'm not saying it's not an understanding, but we still need to strive for excellence instead of letting things slide. So that's just my opinion. But I'm sort of countering what you were sort of saying. So I apologize, but
No, I agree with you. We do need to maintain a good standard.
Okay.
I just meant with changes going on in the hub, it'll be very easy for things to go a little crazy. Because I imagine we're going to reevaluate several standards.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, this isn't the first time that we've had system changes that have been, I will say, not thoroughly tested. And that's where we, even as leadership, has to stay on it for the chapters. So I'll even give my previous RVP, because when I would look at things, he would see something different from what I would see as a district director. And then we took it to central office so that way we could make sure that our chapter that I was working on would get credit. And you're right, it's not, but that's where you just stay on top of it. So I get it. All right, I understand. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, and the spirit of this question is it's a question about opportunities because, there's many ways we can solve different challenges and obstacles that are going to hit our organization for the next couple of years. So we have elected leaders and leaders in influence to be able to do that. So I'm excited for everything that was shared. All right. For another bonus board question, how would you ensure when learning about or working with strategy that it can be visionary and actionable? So we'll start with Wesley on this one.
Sorry, there was a loud noise in my kitchen. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no problem. So the question is, how would you ensure strategy is both visionary and actionable? So while RVP is a more tactical role, you're going to be exposed to strategy, especially when you work with your PVP. So what are your thoughts on how to drive visionable and actionable strategy?
I mean, I guess my biggest thing is it's just about collaboration, right? Like it's making sure that the PVP is listening to all the voices and concerns and is addressing those concerns, whether she can actually address them or if she has to go to someone else to address them, but just making sure that she's actually listening to what we're saying, because everybody has a different perspective, and what I think is a reasonable plan may not be reasonable, to Sean, just because, or vice versa, because also some regions are bigger than others. And so if you're setting an expectation to, visit every, this is just an example. I'm not saying this is an actual expectation, but like if you're setting an example that, or if you're setting an expectation that you need to visit every single chapter, like every semester, okay, I have 9 chapters spread out over 2 states. Now I am more central, so I don't think I'm more than like 3.5 hours from any chapter. But I know that there's like a region in Florida where there's no chapter that's farther than like an hour and a half for most people. So like it's just like it's different. So you just have to be sure that they're listening and adjusting accordingly so that it's actually so that you can meet the goals.
Excellent. All right, Sean, you're up.
My biggest thing about trying to execute these strategies is making sure all of them are, it's very textbook SMART goals. We need to make sure that everything is realistic, is achievable. We need to be able to, support our chapters, and that's what I keep referring to with that development plan of where are we struggling the most, and not just saying, hey, you need to do better, but actually like saying, okay, I'm an RVP. I got to talk the talk as well. So I'm going to meet with your VPF. I'm going to meet with your recruiting chair at some sort of cadence to continue making sure that these strategic priorities are in the minds of our collegiate and alumni chapters.
Right. Thanks, Sean. And then Sarah.
Yeah, that communication with the PVP, I think it's important here because we are the voice on the ground of what's actually affecting our chapters, what's actually going on. So to ensure that when the board is discussing things, that they are things that are going to make sense for our chapters, that their perspectives are being heard. Something that I want to at least try is bringing in, again, my professor side, but offering office hours for the students, for the chapters, so that they can have a regular touch point with me and connect, share thoughts. I can help them out. I might, the September one, have it be about recruitment and things like that, but to be able to connect with them regularly and then bring that feedback into our provincial conversation so that Megan has the information she needs to make good decisions that are going to benefit our province and that will benefit the chapters that we're working with, because as already been said, we are those voices from the ground. We're seeing what's happening within our regions, and we need to really be a voice for our chapters to ensure that when strategy is being talked about, it is something that can be actionable in our province, that is something that's going to make a difference and help our students that we're working with.
Great ties to everything that we're working on. All right, so that ends all of the questions that were sent in advance for our candidates to prepare for. At this time, I'll open up for live Q&A if there's any in the audience. All right, Karen.
Thank you. So, hey guys, all right. I was an RVP in the past. I'm very passionate about this role. While I agree that it is an operational role, I do still believe it's strategic. And this is where this weekend we spent time looking through a lot of Atlanta alumni archives. And when I mean archives, and even Georgia State, items from 1938, letters that were sent from Gig Wright to, at that time, the president of the Atlanta alumni chapter. And some of you may not know, my dad was the Educational Foundation, which is it was the precursor to the Leadership Foundation. So I was going through, I only have a small folder of what was left of his legacy, because when he passed away, it was during his term. So we sent everything to central office when it was still the Educational Foundation, because he was dealing with like land grants and everything else and oil rights for some of these people that would donate for land to the foundation, instead of having it as cash. And what do we do with that? Moving on. One thing I noticed with the leadership in all the letters, they were very operational. So when you see like Gig Wright and the grand presidents and everything else, didn't matter what role they had, they were very engaged. However, I know that they had committees, because when we were reading, we were seeing that they had different the letters were going to like, and I'll just pick a risk management committee. Okay. You know, hey, Mr. Blah, blah, blah. Because these weren't officers, these were just people that they appointed to do certain things. And one thing that I know that I did when I was RVP is I did have committees, because you can't be everything to everyone. You are an RVP, you have district directors. What have y'all thought about tapping into other alumni and having, and if you were going to create a committee structure, what would that look like for each of your regions, knowing that you've been in your region for a while? What would a committee structure look like for you? Whoever wants to answer first.
I can go first. So
Yeah.
I think that for me, I see the greatest need in that right now we're expecting DDs to be everything, right?
Mhm.
Like they're supposed to help you recruit, they're supposed to help you fundraise, they're supposed to help you like operationally, whatever. And I know Sean kind of alluded to this before when he said that like he's not a recruitment guy, so they're gonna connect with somebody else. And I think that creating almost a committee of contacts that chapters can all reach out to, so that if they have a question, they can contact like a subject matter expert, but it's
Yep.
someone who like knows they're going to be contacted, right? So it's not just, oh, I like randomly reach out to this person who I know, like, but they know that chapters are going to reach out. I think that that's something that I would like to see. And I'd also like to see more engagement with our faculty advisors, both with their chapter and with each other. So I had a baby this year. She was born in February, and that just meant that like I didn't get to go to Clemson to their initiation this year because or to their pledging ceremony, because their pledging ceremony was the day she was born, and then 5 weeks later I was not ready to go. But I still worked really closely with the chapter this semester, but I really encouraged them to connect with like their faculty advisor to come be that alumni representative that they needed, and it did bring them closer together and help with that relationship. And so I think that but also connecting the faculty advisors across the region. Harrison, hold on, please. Um, sorry. But connecting them across the region so that they can help chapters. I mean, Sarah's right. Like higher ed is changing, and if the faculty advisors can help the chapters embrace that change ahead of schedule, and if they can help each other, so like do that, like if the faculty advisors can talk so that we can see what's happening, I think that that would be a great opportunity too.
To your point, we helped Georgia Tech get a new one, because the person at Georgia Tech this year said actually to our president, "I'm just a name only."
Yeah, I think
And
that a
so
lot of
that's
chapters forget that they pick their faculty advisor. It's not picked for them. I remind Clemson of that
they
repeatedly, like,
did.
okay, if you don't like them, pick a new one. Like
Well,
it's
yeah.
your choice.
And this was like one of the past presidents, they liked this professor, but this professor really just didn't want to engage in that way. So it happens. And so we helped that. We found a brother that's actually on campus that is not in the business school, but works for Georgia Tech. So now they have a better one that's actually engaged and actually participates in Atlanta Alumni. So that's another thing that you may want to think about. So we're really excited about that. So no, that was great. Good. So yeah, good luck. And if you need help recruiting people for committees, we can
I know
help
who to
you. I
call.
mean, even if it's
Don't
just a
worry.
committee of one, you know what I mean? That's really what I did in the past. It was a committee of one, but I had them all spread out. So if you need, like you said, recruiting, risk management, they knew their responsibility was to answer to those chapters. Sarah, we'll go with you next.
So my answer is different because the leadership landscape here in Mid-Atlantic is very different. I think that if I were answering this question in Southeast, it would have been very different. Southeast is fortunate to have a lot of really great engaged alumni. The reality is we have two very small alumni chapters. The one here in Hampton Roads is struggling a bit to stay active and get brothers who are engaged. We did not have a fully staffed DD team just because of that struggle of trying to find leaders, find alumni who are willing to serve. So as much as I'm all for, committees, especially using them at the national level, I think that is going to be a key to our shift towards being strategic. But the reality is I don't know that Mid-Atlantic is there. I'm definitely open to trying because something that I am passionate about is alumni engagement, but because if we don't have enough DDs, we need to engage alumni, and that's where we can get DDs. We want donors, we need to engage alumni, that's where we get our donors. So that is a priority of mine, especially my little pet project that I would love to see happen either in this biennium or if I'm fortunate enough to serve a second biennium would be to get the Charlotte alumni chapter started and actually going, or at least have some real alumni presence in North Carolina, because I think we need to be engaging alumni. And then I would love to have that conversation about committees. We did have a regional alumni development committee that I was part of when I was trying to get my alumni chapter started. We had some brothers from Charlotte there. So that might be the one that I start with, try to get that alumni engagement going, try to build out our existing leadership team. And then I would love to see committees that are able to engage collegiate brothers so we can connect them on community service and professional initiatives. But the reality is right now, I'm not positive that that's where the Mid-Atlantic region is at, but I am looking at ways to engage alumni so that a few years down the road, we could be having that conversation. I do think committees are a great way to engage alumni, but the alumni have to exist in the first place. And we're still trying to get past that with, again, 2 very small alumni chapters in small metros in Virginia.
No, Sarah, which I totally get, but I also just want to clarify that when I said like creating committees, like I don't even think that they have to exist within your region. Like if you need a subject matter expert and that subject matter expert lives in Cincinnati, then I think that you can engage them because we live in a very connected world now. And I think that we can take advantage of that. So I totally get what you're saying. And I think what you're doing is awesome because you're right. It's very different than the Southeast. But one thing that I want to make sure is that like, I'm not just going to engage alumni in the Southeast. Like if the person that I think is the best to fill that role lives somewhere else, that's who I want to fill that role.
And then
Well,
back in
then
the
to
day,
that point, I would love to see those conversations, like at least at the provincial level, if they're not being had at the national level, to the extent that we might want them to, because I think that that'd be a great way, especially to help the chapters in some of our regions that don't have that alumni support quite yet, to be able to tap into the network that is in Southeast, that's in South Atlantic, and hopefully all work together to help our chapters in that way, because you're right, we are connected. And I could be using someone who has a lot of knowledge in Georgia to help my chapters in Virginia.
oh, are y'all ready for this? And don't quote me on this. One of the things that we found was, it was where John Watton was a district director for, I can't remember what chapter, but it wasn't in the region and it was like a 4-hour drive or whatever. And that's where some of the rules changed that. And it was just funny because you saw the whole legislation and everything that was being discussed in this. And we were looking at the history of how it was because of his rule, because he was so far away and serving as a district director that we had to change some of the legislation as to how you can be an effective district director. Because even when I started as a district director, I couldn't serve in the Southeast, even though I was based in the Southeast. Joan Magnason was from the Mid-Atlantic, the RVP, and had me, because Clemson at that time was in the Mid-Atlantic region. So I ended up serving Clemson as my first chapter as a DD because they didn't need me in the Southeast. So to your point, Wesley, I mean, so think about that when it came to committee. Again, it's a committee of one. We're not saying you have to have like 15 people, but if they have a touch point, and sometimes alumni just want to be that touch point and not be responsible for the whole chapter as a district director. So it sounds, and again, it's not like you're serving on the national committee. It's not like you're just creating these things on your own and have these I'll say touch points for the chapter. Sorry, Sean, I'll let you go. I didn't mean to.
Or I think Sean did go, but I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of great ideas and discussion here. So, I mean, definitely an opportunity to take it offline if we're gonna do a conversation. All right. Yep, I just wanted to make sure, I know there's more folks in the audience. If there's any other folks who have a question to ask, I wanted to open and give the opportunity. Alrighty, and I mean, look, if there's further questions, there's enough of a lull here that, we can start transitioning. We can keep the line open and stop recording the meeting so that we can continue some of these great discussions that are going on. So, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone for being here today, for our candidates for running, and we have Grand Chapter Congress coming up in 20 days, so there'll be more opportunities for all of our members, delegates to be able to meet the candidates and ask further questions. We actually have a new tool this year as part of, this meeting is one of our new processes as a result of recommendations from the delegate task force. Another one of those is a new advanced Q&A feature where any member can send suggested questions for the caucus, and the nominations committee will screen and group up the top themes for questions to be asked at the caucus. So I will actually send that in the chat here. And, you know, thank you for your time today.